in the past, I've been asked to do some Colourpop type tutorials and explaining how the layers work inside of ON1 Photo Raw. So that's exactly what we're going to do here today. Now, what I'm going to do is a really quick edit and then show you how to get that Colourpop effect and, just some ways that you can really work inside of ON1. The first step that we want to do is duplicate our layers. So I'm going to come over here to the layers panel. I'm going to click on duplicate the layer icon. It's going to give me this little pop-up just saying when you create a layer, you're going to get a .on photo file, which is perfectly fine with me. I'm going to go ahead and hit add layer. And now I have my two layers. They're completely identical, but the first one I'm going to leave alone because that's where I'm going to actually pull out and make everything black and white. So I want to go ahead and rename these. So I'm going to call this one color and this one black and white. So now I know what I'm going to be doing on each of the layers. I'm going to go ahead and hit AI auto, and I really want to make these reds in the car more vibrant. So I'm going to come to effects and just do some basic edits here. I'm going to grab my color enhancer. I'm going to throw in the vibrance or throw up the vibrance slider. And then over here on the red, I'm going to make that maybe a little bit more saturated. And I think I want a darker red color. And maybe we'll come over here to our purples and just push those. I don't see anything changing, so I'm not going to worry about that. We'll reset it and just come back over to our reds and even take our oranges and push those more to the red. And that's just going to give us a little bit of a more red car. So if I turn this off, turn it back on, you can see I'm really getting that red car. And that's all that I'm really going to do. You know what? Just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and throw a bleach bypass on here. And that just helps with that contrast. And I'm going to leave it at the default setting, but just know you could go a little bit further should you want to. Now, what I'm going to do is turn on this black and white layer. And as you can see, when you have an image over another image, the top image is what actually gets viewed. Now, what I'm going to do is make this black and white, and then I'm also going to throw in a bleach bypass. And right now I'd like to point out that if I wanted to, I could make all of these adjustments on this particular layer right here. So if I wanted to, I could go add, and then I can throw a black and white filter on, and then I can paint in over this mask, right? So if I want to remove that black and white filter from just here, now I'm still getting essentially the same effect, the same Colourpop effect, right? The difference that I get from being able to use the black and white adjustment on one photo versus using it as a layer is the capability of re-editing the base photo. And that means if I come over here and I modify the develop settings, now I'm also going to be modifying the develop settings for this particular image. And that's not going to be too much fun. And I lose a little bit of flexibility. So that's the reason why I'm using my Colourpop the way that I am. I'm going to go ahead and take that off of there. And we're going to come back over here to our black and white layer. And now we'll go ahead and make our adjustment. Now, instead of painting out on the effects that I have here, I'm actually going to click on the layer mask icon next to the actual layer image or thumbnail that is here. So essentially, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I want to keep this red car in the photo, as well as the driver and everything that's associated with this red car. And I'm not painting this perfectly. You could paint this way better than what I'm doing. I'm just doing a very rough. And the Colourpop effect, some people say it's corny and cheesy. It just depends on what it is that you're trying to do. Here's the base photo pop, if you will, or Colourpop that you can get out of this. And what I will do next is show you why I'm using a separate layer. So right now I'm on the black and white layer, and what I can do is really crank up the contrast now, and this isn't going to impact my overall photo, and I can make this all pretty dark in the back, and I'm just working on the bleach bypass, which helps add some extra contrast in the overall photo. And then I can come to my actual black and white filter. Let me just minimize my layers panel for a second so that way this fits on the screen, and I can start to adjust the colors in the background. So if I turn off this black and white, I can see I have this orange looking car, and then I also have a red car and a black car, which that's not going to matter too much, and a yellow car. So I know I have some information back here in these yellows. So let's see how this converts, right? And now it's really just working with a black and white image. So maybe I want that background. Maybe I want to make those little barriers back here pop a little bit more in the overall image. Let's see what the reds do with those cars in the background, maybe to make those stand out and really, kind of separate what's going on, because obviously the focus is happening right here. And I'll give you a bonus editing technique that you can do with this Colourpop. So now that I have that, what I can do is click on add, and we'll go to the grunge filter, and I'm just going to pull down on the amount and brighten this up because I don't want the photo to get like crazy dark on me, right? But let's go ahead and crank up the detail a little bit. We're just going to add some of that grunge to the overall image. Let's turn that off and turn it back on. I think that's looking okay. Maybe it should happen after the bleach bypass, because I think the bleach bypass was making it way more aggressive than it really needed to be. So I'd mentioned that there's one more thing that I can do to kind of really hone this this effect in. So what I'm going to do is click on layers, and I'm going to click on the layer mask of the car and just hit copy. Now I'm going to come down here. Let me just minimize this for a second, and then we'll go add filter, and we're going to add in a motion blur, because this car is moving, and this only works for situations when it actually works. In this case, I have a car that's moving, so why not add in some motion blur to the image? Now, if I go like this, you can see overall, because I painted out the layer mask on this particular file or this layer, it's already blurring the motion of the overall image, which is really, really good. And I appreciate that. So in fact, I might just leave this as it is, just like so, and maybe just work on the smoothing just a touch. And I'm not worried about the angle, because I think that it's the point is being made here, right? This is all stylistic, subjective, and creative. And I can even pull down on the overall opacity of this particular blur. And then since I didn't need the mask for that, I'll show you what you could also use the mask for, which come into the local adjustments. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste this mask. And obviously this is not looking very good right this second. So I'm going to pull that down just to about -0.5. We'll click on our gear icon, and let's see what overlay or soft light looks like with that adjustment. And we'll even open up some of the shadows, just so that way we're not darkening the image like crazy, but just giving a little bit of contrast around the vehicle. So that way, it just looks a little bit different. So let me go ahead and right click, and I'm going to hit new stamped layer. Now, what that does is it combines both of these layers into one image. So if I turn off all of these, you can see I have my final effect. And the cool thing about this is it gives me a whole new set of development features that I can start adding to my overall image. So, if I'm like, hey, I really want to crank up on the highlights of the entire image, I can do that. It's not doing too much. This is a JPEG, so there's some loss of production or productivity when you start working in this way. So, just know that that is a thing. But I can even crank up on the structure. And then if I'm like, hey, you know what? The last thing that I could do is throw in a LUT, because LUTs make things a little bit easier. And So since it's black and white in the background and the foreground has more of that color pop effect, you're going to see it really impact the rest of the image. But the black and white area, you're really going to see that tone shine through. Now, here is a really cool trick that you can do with the mask that we already have copied. I'm going to click on this LUT and I'm going to paste it. Now, right now, there's nothing really special about this. What it's doing is just keeping the LUT from affecting the car that you can see I have here selected. But if I click on, or I'm already in the mask, if I come over here to density, I can start to blend in how that car is being affected by this mask, or I'm sorry, how this car is being affected by the LUT. And what it's doing, and this is probably not the best way of demonstrating it, so give me 1 second. Let me use my handy dandy keyboard shortcut. So now we're looking at it the way that you would normally see the mask. So if I pull the density up to 100%, you see that this turns pure black. And what that's doing is saying the effect cannot go anywhere where the black is located on this mask. And I'm just going to fill in the gaps here of this mask because I don't want that to mislead anyone. But what the density does is it starts to pull down the opacity of the overall mask that you painted. So now you're really starting to fine tune the way that the mask is interacting with the effect. So if I hit the letter O, you can see if I pull this all the way down, that mask is completely impacting the overall image. But if I pull up on the density, now I'm starting to get this grayscale where a little bit of that effect is starting to shine through. So hopefully that makes sense. But the reason why this matters is when you're trying to blend an effect with your overall image, sometimes lowering the density will help take it to that next level. So if I turn that adjustment off, you can see that the image is mostly black and white in the background, which is cool. And then I started to play around with it a little bit and made it a little bit more sepia toned with the Colourpop effect. Now, there is another way that you can do this. So let me go ahead and turn that LUT off. And I'm going to add in, we will go, you know what, we'll just go with a photo filter because photo filters work. Now, this way is actually kind of fun because what I get to do is sample a color from the car. So I'm just going to grab this red here, and now I can pull up on the amount, and we'll say maybe somewhere, I want to get it fairly close, but not too close, right, to the color of the car. And now what I can do is come to the photo filter, hit paste, and then I can come to the density, and you can see how I'm just starting to blend that back in with the original image. This method you have to play around with a little bit more. You can even come into your blend mode and check it out on soft light or overlay. I would stay away from some of the darkening ones, but the lighter ones can really do some cool effects to the overall image. It just depends on what you're going for. So, you know, hopefully this is just helping you see like the experimental things that you can do inside of ON1, working all non-destructively, because I have not destroyed this image. If I want to revert back to the original, I can very easily just remove all of these filters and get there. And I didn't actually flatten these into a single image. So I still have the original down here. Now, over the next couple videos, I will start using the layers a little bit more and showing it more in action as opposed to just saying, you know, click this and this is what the layer does. I want to show you why I use it and how I use it, because a lot of you have been telling me that it makes sense and you appreciate when I'm sharing why I do what I do. So I'm just going to do that because I like to share why I do what I do, to help you see that you can do a lot of things inside of ON1. And again, this isn't the greatest mask, and I wouldn't even call this like award-winning photography. Nothing to dig on the photographer who made this particular image, which I got from Unsplash. You can check the description box below and go download this and try it out on your own, because I just used 100% the stock filters that are inside of ON1 Photo Raw. Now, if you don't have ON1 Photo Raw, consider using my discount code FreeWillPhotos20 to save a little bit of money at checkout whenever you purchase things over on the ON1 website. I get a small commission when you do that, but you get a discount. So it's like a win-win. If you got questions, leave them in the comment section below. And until the next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.